Hi, everyone. This is Matt Ogburn at Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. I think we might wait just a couple more minutes to get started because I see the number of attendees has hit 50 and still going up. So I might just give 1 or 2 more minutes before we start. If you're just joining, all of the attendees are muted until we give you permission later. But you feel free to use the chat function or Q&A function if you have questions in the meantime while things are going on. Well, good morning, everyone. I think the number of people joining is slowing down a little bit, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the, I guess, second annual Mid-Atlantic and Northeast Telemetry Workshop. I'm sorry we're not able to do this in person, but I think the steering committee did an excellent job in planning this and making an early call to move it online. So I definitely want to thank all of you for joining. Thank our steering group, and I'll mention their names a bit later on, for helping to organize this webinar. I want to thank the Chesapeake Research Consortium for agreeing to provide funding to support the in-person meeting that didn't happen this spring, but when we are able to schedule another in-person meeting, we should continue to have their support to help make an in-person meeting possible. And I also want to thank Kim Ritchie and Mary Ford, who are on the back end helping to run this webinar. They've both done a lot of work to set this up, and we'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A functions on the back end, and also helping you all have the opportunity to ask questions. So I want to just throw it over to Mary for a minute or two to go over a few of the webinar ground rules.
Thanks, Matt, and good morning, everybody. I know we've all been on a lot of these virtual calls, so this will be pretty brief, but as you know, all the participants are going to be muted throughout the workshop, and panelists, please only use your camera and microphone when you're presenting. As Matt mentioned before, questions can be typed into the chat box at any time, and we'll respond during Q&A sessions. And also, if you have any technical issues or other issues, please just put them in the chat box and we'll respond. There's our roundtable session this afternoon that we will allow participants to talk. So the best way to moderate that will be, there's a raise your hand function you should see on your screen somewhere. And if you raise your hand, we'll be able to call on you and unmute. Just be patient, because I imagine a lot of people are going to want to talk, but we'll make sure we get to everybody. I think that's it. And like I said, if you have any other questions, just type them into the chat box and Kim or I will respond.
Great, thanks, Mary. So I wanted to start just by going over the agenda very quickly. As Mary mentioned, we'll be having a few sort of different sections of the workshop. We'll start with this introduction by me and a few others. Then I'm going to give a brief presentation on the transition of the ACT network from coordination at Delaware State to Smithsonian. We'll have a series of presentations about linking the different acoustic telemetry networks along the Atlantic coast of North America and the Caribbean. Then we'll have a period of time at 10:30 for you to provide brief updates about major projects, either that are starting or wrapping up, or major updates about arrays, things that are going, new ones coming in the water, ones that might be coming out of the water, and so on. And then finally at 11, we'll have a training session on using the ACT MATOS telemetry database that you'll be hearing more about during the course of the meeting. And Kim Ritchie will be giving that overview, everything from how to create an account to how to view and download data and use the mapping tool. So that's the course of the day here. But thanks again, everyone, for joining. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to be able to at least bring this group together virtually for a half day to talk about telemetry. And at this point, I want to hand it over to Gerhard Kuska, who's the Executive Director of MATOS, for a few remarks.
Thank you, Matt. I hope you can hear me okay. Good morning, everyone. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be here with us under these challenging circumstances. Within MATOS, we've tried and continue to try to keep our operations going, and to the extent that our partners can do so legally and safely, we are keeping data streams up and running because they are considered essential by the federal government and the National Weather Service and other partners. And so those of you that are on the phone that are part of that work, I want to thank you especially for the work and the efforts you continue to put in during this time. I also want to thank Matt and Kim, especially for the work they have been doing with MATOS and all the partners, obviously in the region and beyond as part of ACT, and also for the ICE Program Office for their support, and in particular Bill Woodward, who you'll hear from in a moment, for his leadership. We have continued to try to expand the connections between oceanography and biology, and some of our partners who are involved with our core operations are involved in biology as well, and they have been making some of those links through leveraging some of the opportunities, and that has been very helpful. We've also continued to try to invest more effort and time in supporting MATOS, and we wanted to hear from the community because we've been hearing this from our colleagues around the country. We've been getting guidance from IUS about the importance of biological data and supporting the biological communities. And as such, we sent out a survey, actually, I think Kim and Matt sent it out, which was part of our strategic planning process. And I hope you've been able to take the time to do so. If you haven't, then I encourage you to please take the time. It's only through hearing from our partners and others who maybe have not been engaged intimately with America's partnership that we are become aware and are able to expand as we continue to grow. We've been very fortunate through the appropriations process, through additional grant opportunities, to grow considerably, and we plan on continuing to grow into the future despite the difficult times. We're expecting an increase in year 5, and as we look towards the next 5-year cycle, we want to hear from you. We will be conducting or putting out a request for information or request for proposal type process come now late spring, early summer. And it's an opportunity for us to reconfirm the critical work that we're doing, because we have an obligation. I want to make this clear. We are not a funding agency like an NSF or a NOAA would be. We are an operator. We're an extension of the federal government. We're an opportunity, a hybrid, to provide the same level of quality and consistency that folks expect from federal operations. We do that at the non-federal regional scale to provide an added value that they can't do at the national or global scale. And so the work that we're doing, the critical work we do with the current partners, is very important. And I don't want anyone to ever think that we're underestimating or that we're changing. We have an obligation to our partners to be consistent and to sustain observations. However, we continue to grow and to be able to look for opportunities as our funding continues to grow. We need to be aware of the needs of the community and the capabilities of our partners and potential new partners. And so that's why it's an opportunity for you all, if you have an interest and are able to spend a little bit of time. We're not going to be asking a lot. It's not going to be a complicated process, to share with us your ideas and how they tie directly to the communities. We want them to rise to the top and contribute and to the sustained observations and the sustained products that we provide, so that we can, as we continue to grow and get more funding, that we can fund those highest priorities and those highest proposals. We're expecting a larger cap in our next 5-year proposal, up to as much as 30 million versus the 20 million we received today. And that's because of the expectation that we will be able to fund more going forward. So, and as such, I encourage you to participate in the survey if you haven't already, and to keep an eye out for that request for information. We want to continue to build those ties between the oceanography we do and the biology, particularly as it serves the needs of the community. Thanks very much, and thank you again for participating today.
Thanks, Gerhard. Our next introductory speaker is Bill Woodward, the coordinator of the U.S. Animal Telemetry Network.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody, for joining. That's a heroic number of participants here, and I think we know Zoom is going to carry the load here, and it's wonderful. So thank you all for participating. I hope you are all staying healthy and taking care of one another during these very difficult times. As Gerhard was referring to, we have had many virtual meetings, and I think we'll continue to do that for some time. And I think that's the best thing for us to do. So very rewarding to see everyone here. I have a chance, and thank you, Matt, for providing the opportunity for me to talk about the ATN briefly here. Many of you are aware of the Animal Telemetry Network in the US. I will not spend a lot of time going over ground that most of you have heard, but just a little bit more than an elevator speech on what the ATN is all about and how it fits into the topics that we'll be discussing today. As this slide indicates, our overall goal of the U.S. Animal Telemetry Network is to provide a unifying glue, if you will, to bring together many of the existing efforts and strengthen them and provide continuity for them. And the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast is a perfect example of how that can work, and we'll be talking about that more during the day. The Animal Telemetry Network is supported by 9 federal agencies, 3 of whom are actually putting money into supporting it. Those are the 3 logos that you see on the right-hand side: the Office of Naval Research, NOAA, including National Marine Fisheries Service, and BOEM. So we have implemented the ATN, which started when I came aboard to begin the coordination of it in April of 2016. So it's 4 years now we've been doing this, and we've been implementing it in what we call 3 components or 3 pillars. One is we're here to form alliances and collaborations and to strengthen those that already exist and could benefit from greater collaboration among the researchers, among the science community. So that's one of the primary goals that we have. And as we began the ATN, we have marched around the country holding workshops to understand what the needs are, what the priorities are, what the goal, what the gaps may be, et cetera. And I'll touch on that in just a second, particularly in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic region. The second component is what we call data management. Our primary goal there is to simply maximize access to the data being collected by many disparate groups, and to bring that together and provide a national aggregation point for that data, not to take away from the value and the importance of regional collection and the local nodes that we have that have been implemented on the East Coast. But the marine animals do not respect our geographical boundaries, so it's important to have that ability to be able to study the movement of the animals across geographical borders, if you will. So it is a national aggregation capability that we like to call a community resource, because it's available to everyone, and it doesn't just bring data together and provide delivery of it, but it also provides through our National Data Assembly Center, which is currently operated by Axiom Data Science. It provides a cyber research workspace, as we call it, corner of the world for PIs to come, to upload their data to analyze it, to manage the data, to share it, visualize it, and ultimately provide a permanent archiving capability and DOI minting for your data. We've been very fortunate to, with National Marine Fisheries Service money, to support a data manager, data wrangler, Dr. Megan McKinsey, who came aboard just about a year ago now, and she's been the interface between the community and our Data Assembly Center, and is doing a terrific job bringing data in and reaching out to the community. The third piece is what we call supporting baseline observations, and that's where the money is. That's what interests a number of folks, where there are gaps, and we've been able to identify them, and if we have the resources and the financing to do, we can, in fact, and have already put some money into the community to support some of those gaps. That includes data wranglers. We've been very fortunate to be able to support the data wrangler, Kim Ritchie, in the ACT Mid-Atlantic region here. So that's the kind of thing that we're involved there. So jump to the next slide, Matt, please. I mentioned the workshops. I think there's something missing on that. Click on that. Yeah, there you go. We have implemented so far a workshop in each of the IUS regions. We have grouped some of them together to make it easier, where there was connectivity, both science through the science and the technical data collection parts like Socorro and Caracas. You see the first one there. So purpose of these workshops, and some of you viewing today have participated in them. Thank you for doing that. Purpose of the workshops have been, as I said, to find out what's going on and who the stakeholders are, what do they really need, and how can we best serve them through the goals we have for the ATN, continuity of observing systems and strengthening alliances, that sort of thing. So the four pictures that you see, those are the cover shots of the research of the workshop reports. The one on the right back, who's just finished yesterday, and that'll be available with the others on the website, and you see the link there. Okay, Matt, next, please. Talked about themes and priorities and gaps. I just wanted to put this out there. The first workshop we had was in Annapolis, and covered the Maracus region, East Coast region, and I won't read through those, but you can do that yourself, and you'll see what we found on the East Coast as in terms of themes or gaps and so on is something that we as an ATN were able to respond very, very positively to, and providing, as it says in the first one, there's a large amount of work going on, but And as the second bullet says, that the need for a dedicated and a sustained management capability and improved cyber capability, the tremendous work that Dwayne and Lori Brown Dwayne Fox and Lori Brown had done to now laid the foundation for something that we could help to improve and bring the MATOS tool to bear on this. One of the first meetings I went to actually was the Maricoo's annual meeting, and I learned about MATOS then from Matt Ogburn, and we have been working on that since, and you'll hear from Kim later on how well that has gone. There's a large amount of satellite telemetry on the East Coast too. That's not the topic of this meeting, but one of the jobs that we in the ATN are trying to do is to get some cohesiveness and collaboration to be stronger among them too, and that's working pretty good. I just put that one at the bottom because as I said, we marched around the country and had workshops in all these different regions. There certainly are unique local requirements, but here's a national theme that came out for virtually everyone. And I think we all know this. However, getting it done is something that is a little more difficult than just saying it. The stakeholders have said, data is great, we like that, we love to see it on, but what we need is information because we don't have the time to analyze that data and figure out exactly how to apply it to it. We need information from you folks. So that's something that we have taken to heart, and we're working through a bunch of places, including our DAC, to deal with getting information and products out there, not just the data. Okay, next, Matt. I think this is the last one. A note on our data assembly center. I mentioned we consider it to be a community resource. We want anyone and everyone who is collecting telemetry data to be part of that. As I said, Megan McKenzie has done a great job just in the last year, and we now have almost 70 projects that have their data in to our DAC. 41 of them are discoverable. The reason for that difference is that in order to be discoverable, the metadata, the required metadata needs to be there. That's absolutely important. So that number of discoverable data sets will grow as time goes on, and the PIs get the metadata in. So for those of you interested, and I would encourage you to jump on that portal and get an idea of what we have and what's available to the community there. It's actually quite impressive, if I do say so myself. Axiom has done a great job. Right now, we are including only satellite tag data in there, and that's only because that was kind of a low-hanging fruit to get the DAC going. That data was somewhat more manageable, and at the same time now, in our second year of operation, we do have a technical approach to in place in the DAC to ingest acoustic data. We haven't got to the point where we're able to do it yet. Although the technical approach involves using a registration app, which is a way that PIs can register to become part of the DAC, and using that as the mechanism for input of the metadata records. What we have done is, at this point, built that around to accommodate the level of metadata that OTN requires from their PIs, because we are working very closely with OTN, and the more we make things the same, the more it's going to be a lot easier for the PIs. We're working on the best pathway to acquire that metadata, and that's one of the things that's still ongoing. We have brought a couple of data sets in there for test purposes to data sets that have been released from embargo. As as I say, test cases to see how this is going to work. And we're still evaluating that capability. One of the things we're wrestling with is now to figure out what actually a data set is and what we want to include in there, and to work with the regional nodes that exist right now to figure out how much of the data we actually should or makes sense to acquire, to aggregate nationally versus what's available on the nodes, and how we could get that. And also how we would get data from PIs that are not part of a node, because there are some of those things. And we're doing this all together, as I said, with tremendous support from the OTN, and from the FACT and the ACT networks. And I will stop there, and I think that's it. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Bill. I think we have a few minutes here before 9:30. If there are people who have questions for Bill or for Gerhard, you could raise your hand, and we'll see if we can ask a question or two.